Wow, Cryptic Studios are making up for their lack of recent patches with one fell swoop today. At 12 UTC to 1730 UTC, there will be a maintenance that unfortunately won't include Xbox. Now, the big thing for endgame players is they're reducing the effectiveness of Band of Air. Its damage is going through the floor with a bunch of reasons, as you can see on screen, mainly with it not proccing off other procs and essentially reducing its damage by like 3 times. And thus, with the reduction to the proc rate, we end up with a before and after, much like this. Band of Air dealing like 21% of my damage, now is only dealing like 4.4%. And they made it, if you use both rings, it will actually deal slightly more damage than just using the Band of Air, but it's still pointless to use both rings. Now, since the Band of Air is nerfed and we lose upwards of 20% of our damage, they're also having to adjust the Master Trials by reducing the boss's hit points by 10% to those following. Those of you Wizard players out there will be happy to note there are some fixes coming to the previous server, mostly bug fixes, and you can see the entire list on this forum post just here by the dev who is working on the Wizard. Again, most of it is all just fixing the things that should have been working that weren't, but a few increases here and there. Now, at one point there was the ability to freely retrain your powers and end up with stacking both your Paragon paths. This was known as like fusion characters, and well, you shall be getting forcefully reset all of your powers, getting put back where you have to re-choose your Paragon path, your ability scores, and reset your boons. As an example, I could have channeled divinity on the Paladin Justigar, which was broken as all hell, ending up with being able to tab heal myself as a tank. Now, as promised with the Rothe Valley Battle Pass for part 1, if you haven't completed it, you'll be able to go to your claims valuable and you'll be able to go into claim and be freely able to obtain 850 free battle pass XP. We should be able to check our battle pass here now, and indeed we have 850 XP. This will help some people finish it who maybe only got to 3150. But if you have the premium pass, you most definitely have it completed already, or you can even wait till part 3 before getting the premium pass and then completing them all at once. Now, as per my video of yesterday, Hell Pit is indeed returning, but this time it should be much easier. You should actually be scaled up to 40,000 item level if you meet the minimum entry requirement of just 18,000 item level. That will make it significantly easier for newer players to actually complete, since it's entirely solo. And then we have an adjustment to our dragon hunts. They should be coming a little bit easier, specifically the black dragon. He'll have 33% less orbs, and those orbs will deal 50% less damage. Those of you unaware what I mean, it's this mechanic like the Gatling gun with all of those orbs shooting out, and literally whenever they hit you, they create a red area in the ground, and you can see like it's so easy to die to it. We had a much less this time around, so we were pretty lucky. But with this change, it should be much easier to beat black, and otherwise the enemy's damage overall will be decreased, along with hit points being reduced by roughly 20%. It shall no longer incorrectly increase it by that amount. Now, with the trial queue, the random trial queue, Rise of Tiamat is currently in there, and people were still struggling with it. But once again, another round of changes has occurred, and again, it should make it a bit easier. The main reason people are failing this is because people are not sticking to their separated groups. So apparently they're doing a forced teleportation so that you end up in the correct location at the Tiamat's heads. People were thinking they have to group up on the heads to all together, same with the claw phase, and basically you're just making it harder for yourself because you will always end up having to fight 2 heads, and if the other group doesn't occupy that dragon, you'll end up with multiple breaths and AoEs all stacking on the one group which will end up you dying a lot more often. And if the tank is not there to tank, let's say, the mini bosses on the clerics, it can also end up a mess. So again, these are the adjustments, with a reduction to Tiamat's hit points along with reducing the damage of the mini bosses. Now, very nicely, all paladins will really appreciate it. The Blessed Advantage feature, which gives 5% additional damage, will be increased to 20%, as we can see now on the previous server. This was utterly ridiculous, only giving 5%. 20% shall at least be a little bit more beneficial, and the main reason they're doing it to the Paladin and, let's say, not other tank classes is because those tank classes have a different paragon, which is a DPS path, a dedicated damage dealing path. You can switch to that, and then you can get your powers, which will deal a significant amount more damage than the tank. You do not have an excuse of, oh, but I just want to play tank, and then do all your damage on your tank. No, just switch on a fighter or barbarian to your DPS path for solo content. It's a bit silly going in as a tank. Then there was a bug with the new mount we're getting from the lockbox called Big B's Hand. You may have noticed that as well. Essentially, you weren't getting the equip power or fast striding of 6% movement speed, and now we should properly be able to get that upon obtaining it and equipping it. Additionally, those of you having trouble with the Hellfire Steed and not being properly account wide should be able to claim it from the rewards reclaim agent, and was having some issues with the skeleton steed prior to binding a Hellfire Steed, etc., and they'll be providing recompense for players affected by this issue. Now, since the enchantment rework, a ton of enchants have become useless, and with the older lockboxes, they shall be removing the older enchants and introducing the newer enchants. For example, the Descent lockbox and all of the lists down there. I had a look on the previous server, and apparently they haven't made any changes yet, as they seem to still show ancient enchantments along with marks of potency. Now, some big news with the Vault of Stars advanced dungeon. It shall become much easier to obtain its rewards. We can see right here that from the chests at the end, whether it's hardcore or just a normal version, the legendary rings will drop much more frequently. Along with that, the Band of Air and the Darkness components will drop much more frequently from all mini bosses. You'll need one per mini boss, and finally one at the end of the dungeon. The shirt and pants from the second and third hardcore mini bosses will always drop, and those shirt and pants will drop one per person instead of one per party. So if you've been wanting to complete your Sharandar collections, well, it'd be a much easier time at it now. You can see all the shirt and pants just down here. They were very hard to obtain. Much easier now. Along with that, hardcore mini bosses will always drop one non-shirt and pant item as guaranteed, one per player. That again is great to get this gear. Some of them very good, like these Wasteland Wanderer boots, really good for damage dealers. So at least upon every mini boss kill, you will get one piece of that gear, 100%. However, they shall no longer be able to drop like two non-shirt and pant items. Now, while you're in the zone Sharandar, you may have been able to obtain these shattered diamond shards to obtain this diamond set for tanks, along with a whole bunch of companion gear. And now it should be a lot easier to get those shards from your heroic encounters, along with the bounties, which your quests to get the companion gear should properly always award either a companion gear, cosmetic, or artifact set item. Awesome. Now, these are the diamond shards just here. We have 680 of them, and when you open them, you can see you'd always obtain a diamond blessing, which is a 5% damage boost, along with then just some rewards, like getting this diamond set for your tanks. And you can open a bunch more there, and the drop rate's not the best, but they won't be increasing it, just making it easier to get these shards. Now, with regards to the Winter Festival, the Starlight parcels will now drop your cosmetic pig, Mr. Lunchbox, and the Fire Blossom Zila. That's about it for today's patch. It is a bit longer than that, as you can check the patch notes just here. I did skip over things that weren't so specific, so necessary with the Sharandar bounties themselves. The enemies will spawn every 5 minutes instead of 10, and on top of that, the Cyclopses and Trolls unfortunately can't spawn like multiple times, which was pretty handy, to be honest. Bit of changing to the lighting. In Rothe Valley, the Scrying Stone quest will properly be able to be achieved now, with that one Scrying Stone being properly accessed. We can check the calendar real quick as it's updated to November. Unfortunately, not on the previous server yet, so we'll have to see that when it goes live. Something that can be very nice for Crown of Keldrgon is Palavorthine will no longer incorrectly be targetable when he flies away. This should help active companions, striker companions in this trial a lot more, as when he does fly away, they'll just end up all piled up and keep attacking where he flew off originally, and thus end up dealing a lot less damage than just saving their burst for Palavorthine. So that should be good help to complete that a bit easier. And additionally, if we scroll down here, we can see that they've adjusted something with the phase spider instincts and your movement speed, and they changed so the chromatic strands won't be dropping from Tiamat trial or the Cradle of the Death God, and the Dragonfire gadget can't be sold, and it should also no longer crash the servers sometimes. Otherwise, Seals of the North can no longer be earned above the maximum weekly cap from your trial and advanced dungeon queues, and the Seals of the Wild can now drop when players reach the cap for Seals of the North, and otherwise just some performance and stability adjustments here, and that's about it for today's patch. It is a pretty significant and big with regards to the changes that they are coming out with, like the Band of Air nerf and making it much easier to obtain, along with making Sharandar much more friendly with regards to those diamond shards dropping in much more quantities. Again, like 10 instead of 2 from a heroic encounter, 25 instead of 3, and then bounties giving 10 instead of 1. Massive. You can open your shards once you get 100, so that's just 4 major heroics now. So with that, I'd like to give a special thank you to all of these channel members for their continued support. And if I presented this well, consider leaving the video a like. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.